Okay, we're back on the Ground and Pound show. This week we've got reporter Jen in the house. How are you?
Just fine, just fine.
We've got Sensei Jay D'Amato. How are you doing?
Excited to be here.
There you go. I'm Jim Jenkins. I'm filling in for Andy Clearman. He'll be back in a few minutes and taking back over his hosting duties. We've also got Jan on the camera tonight. I want to thank her.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jan.
There you go.
My pleasure.
Obviously, we were already talking about it when we popped on the air, and it's the same thing everybody's talking about, and that's the last UFC event. And Jay, I'm going to let you pick up again. You were talking about some of Dana's reactions, Dana White's reactions to who he thought won the fight, because it's the main topic right now, and that, and of course Lesnar, but we'll first talk about what just happened.
That was interesting there. Dana told everybody immediately as the fight was over, he walked over there and said, "You got screwed." He goes, "You won the fight." And that's what he said. That, you know, you could hear him saying it there. You hear everybody complaining and everything there. Then they did the post-fight, which I thought was really interesting. And he says, "Yeah, they screwed him. The judges are the worst. This is unbelievable." And he said, you know, just went on and on about the terrible judging. So then one of those people asked him, well, break it down by the round. And he says, okay. So what he said is round one could have gone either way, but if I had to give it to anybody, I would have given it to Machida. Round 2 and 3 were definitely Machida. And he says, he won, first he said, before that he even said that Machida won rounds 1 through 3. Then he said, but then he goes, round 1 was really close, but I would have gave it to Machida. Then he said, Shogun won rounds 4 and 5. And then all of a sudden you see the look on his face like, oh, well, the Machida won. What a surprise. And yet he just got done saying how terrible the judging is, and yet by his own opinion, he picked the same thing. And exactly how I chose it. When I walked out, I turned right to everybody. Said it was 3-2. The first 3 rounds to Machida, second 2 rounds to Shogun.
Right, and we watched it. We were at the same place when we watched it, and I know that you watch things more as a judge, and I was kind of watching as a fan that night. And I think I got the lasting impression that most people do, which is the final, the last 2 rounds are what you remember. And at the end of the fight, I'm looking at this guy and that guy, and it looks like he won the fight.
Well, if you listen to Joe Rogan, it was hard not to listen to him, and that's what made me start paying attention and start thinking as a judge. And I'm like, hold it, I don't agree with what he just said. They're saying, because they kept making all these statements, oh, he's killing him, he's doing this, he's just kicked him with this. But they also said he was counter kicking.
Right.
That he was getting punched, and then he came back with a counter kick.
I don't
And then he came back with
really
everything.
care about Rogan anyway. I mean, I like him as a person, but I don't think half the time he knows what he's talking about.
Well, he comes across to me as pretty knowledgeable usually, and
He is, but when you're a judge, and I guarantee as busy as he is, trying to come up with the bullshit, what he's going to say next, and worrying about that, you're not thinking about this.
right. If you're a commentator, you can't, you shouldn't be trying to judge also. So.
Yeah, and it's hard. I mean, as a judge, it's hard to judge it and stay focused on just that. And pay attention to what's going on exactly, and forget about the last round, and forget about the last minute, and what's going on this minute, and then the next minute is its own time, and paying attention back and forth, and let the fight flow, and not be part of it.
Yeah, when I'm scoring a fight, I look at it definitely different, than
always.
I do is just, watching a fight as a fan.
Well, it's no fun to be a judge.
Right.
I don't remember ever going, boy, was that fun. They asked me about the fight afterwards, I'm like, I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember past the last round.
Right.
I mean, it's like that round's over with, okay, clean that house, and you're over, and you catch your breath, and you do another one, and then you're just totally focused on this.
Oh, even when I've judged before, in the old days, more kickboxing, but it's, you got to remember, too, that a guy might win the beginning of the round. You have to really watch the whole round and keep tabs throughout the fight.
Well, I break it down like in the 3 or 5 minute rounds, and just say, okay, this minute, who won the first minute? And then I make a mental tally, and I put a little note sometimes. Then I say, who won the second minute? And then I look at that. Then I go to the 3rd minute, and then the 4th minute, and then try to keep weight it that way, and then look at it and see how I did. But when you're doing all the different ways of adjusting, there's you've got no time to think. There's no fun. I mean, the fight goes by, and you're ready, and you can watch it tomorrow and have fun.
Yeah, you can't be distracted. You can't have a beer.
You can't cheer. You can't do this or do that. It's like, no, what is he doing? You can't help. You can't do it. And even though I'm leaning and I'm squishing, I'm like, oh, God, I'm ducking.
An impartial observer.
Right,
is what you're supposed to be. So, yeah, that's it's definitely not as much fun. So, so you thought that Hua won?
Well, I thought it was, well, this was a perfect example, I thought, of why it really could have been a draw. This thing, that first round could have been a draw. The
We're
next two,
10-10 round, yeah.
and I see, but they tell you, oh, no draws, that just means you can't make a decision.
Right.
No, you just cheated somebody out of a round and out of the whole championship because somebody said you're not supposed to make a draw. If it's a draw, it's a draw.
Right.
And some of those rounds could easily have been a draw. But they tell you, oh, that's terrible, you're a bad judge if you even think a draw. You know, and not for the whole match, but for a round. If it turns out to be that, and because there's 2 rounds to 2 rounds, and then 1 round a draw, the thing could have been a draw.
Well, I think MMA is one of the hardest sports to score, you
Oh,
know.
it
I
is.
mean, it's much harder than boxing or even the others, you know, wrestling, anything to score.
Well, were takedowns more important, or were attempted takedowns worth more points? Or were punches to the head worth more than kicks to the legs? Everybody had to make a decision on that. Now, they said is the people there said if you were within the, you know, a reasonable, near the ring, you absolutely saw it the way the judges judged it.
Really?
They said if you sat back farther and you watched it on TV, it wasn't as obvious there, but several people wrote in on the internet. They said if I was, you know, I was down there and it was obvious. Then I saw it on TV the next day and they said I didn't know it was, I mean, I was completely confused because on TV then it looked closer. But when we were there, it looked very obvious that he won the first 3 and Shogun won the last 2.
He did bust them down. You know, he worked on breaking them, you know, as
But
much.
Shogun was wonderful.
He was,
I was so impressed with Shogun as a fighter, as a tough guy and
Right,
everything else, and as a skilled guy. He was wonderful. That was a great fight.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
he
was.
just totally brutalized Machida's legs. Brutalized.
Brutalized him. But, you know, Dana White said something that I totally agree with, too. Nobody tried to steal each round.
Right.
He says, I don't get it. The last 30 seconds of the round, steal the round. That's a standard in boxing,
It's the,
kickboxing.
it's the
As long as
last.
they've been keeping track, they said, steal the round. Last impression.
Right.
What's the last thing the judge remembers before he has to take that pen to the score sheet and score who won the round?
Whenever I work with somebody and I think there's something wrong with their judging, it's always that they get taken in with the last minute. They remember the last minute and I go, what happened the first minute? Oh, yeah. That guy was kicking him and this guy was doing this. He says, that didn't count. I forgot about that. How did Tony do?
Hey,
Oh, he
Jamie,
got-
how are you? That's
he
all right.
got,
This is Jim. Andy stepped out for a minute, but I can put you on. Let's go ahead and do that. All right. Everybody, we've got Jamie Penicks from MMA Torch. Jamie, how are you doing? I'm doing good. I need to turn the volume up on this phone, though, for a minute. How's that sound?
I can hear you fine. Can you guys hear me?
No?
Not really.
Try the other phone.
Hold on 1 second. Let me try this other phone.
We're having a little technical difficulties. Getting Jamie on the phone.
Jamie, first thing I did after the fight, I went to the MMA Torch to see what you thought. I wanted to hear your opinion on everything, so I read it. I've got a copy of everything. It was a good breakdown. I didn't agree with you necessarily, but it was still a very good breakdown. I mean, you definitely know what you're talking about, and you see a lot. Jim? He's trying to fix the thing right now.
Jamie, I'm having a hard time. Hold on a second. I'm sorry.
Well, Jamie, do you still feel the same
He
way
can't hear
about
you.
the
He
way
can't
the
hear
fight went? The main fight with, Machida and Shogun? I guess I can't hear you, so it doesn't matter.
Did we lose him completely?
Why don't we have you call back in a few minutes when